Welcome everybody. My name is Peter van Dollen and I serve as the director of the Tchaikovsky Institute, and I would like to welcome you all to this talk. We've got a guest speaking to us as a topic we haven't had many discussions of, and so it's great to have that here. So Dr. Chen Chenratana comes to us from Cambodia, and where he's affiliated with the University of Cambodia at Phnom Penh itself. Please, there's some seats here. He has been trained in Paris, though. He holds both a master's degree and a PhD from the Sorbonne, Paris 3, for those of you who are familiar with the system. And has, he completed that in 2011 and has since been back in Cambodia, where he's been active as an archaeologist. As I said, affiliated with the University of Cambodia. But as well, he founded an association called the Kerdomnel Khmer Foundation, which is to promote, to protect, and just to increase awareness of archaeological heritage in the country. At present, he's on a trip through the US, talking at the conference and giving various talks elsewhere. And thanks to the intercession of Rebecca Luchak, we are fortunate to have Dr. Chenratana speak to us tonight. The talk here is co-sponsored by Brown History of Art Department and the Center for Language Studies. So, and together with the Tchaikovsky Institute, therefore we are very glad to host this talk. And most of all, again, let me be pleased to see such a varied and numerous audience here. So without further ado, I will pass on word to Dr. Chenratana for his talk on Angkor Wat Temple from Hindu to Buddhist shrine.
Okay, so good evening everyone. Thank you so much. I'm so glad to be here because this is my third time in the US, my second time in New York that I joined the CIA conference. So this third time I joined the CIA conference in Washington DC. So at the same time I profit to come here because I was one of my colleagues, Rebecca Luchak. She's also very helpful for my for helping me to organize this kind of talk at the University in Rhode Island. So yes, as he director of the institute, he's also mentioned and also talk about brief biographies from me about me. So I would like to talk about the topic. This topic is about Angkor Wat Temple from Hindu to Buddhist shrine. So as you know that because right now Angkor Wat becomes the World Heritage List, and in 2014, 2015 attract a lot of tourists. And Angkor Wat, or Angkor's archaeological site, become the most beautiful archaeological site in the world, and the most attractive tourist site in the world too. So many people interested about Angkor Wat. So what is the Angkor Wat mean in Khmer concept, and why we call this Angkor Wat? So Angkor Wat means that the city of the monastery or the city of pagoda. And in Cambodia, in the Khmer language, we call one more name, we call Angkor Tot. Angkor Tot, which means the small city. And why the people call this temple a small city? And what was happening during that time after the King Suryavarman built the temple and dedicated this temple to Vishnu God. So this is for introduction, very brief, because the location of Cambodia located in Southeast Asian country between Thailand and Laos and also Vietnam. So we was in Indochina. So Cambodia was under the control of French colonial period for 90 years, from 1863 until 1953. So most of the archaeological work and art history was researched by the French scholars during that time. So that's why after graduate from Royal University of Fine Art in Phnom Penh in Cambodia, I have to continue my study in French for my MA degree and for my PhD degree. So Angkor was right now at Siem Reap province. This is the Lake Sab, the Great Lake, and this is the Mekong River, source from China until the South China Sea. And we have our city was at Phnom Penh. And so from Phnom Penh to Siem Reap, only 300 kilometers. So if we took the plane, just only half an hour. And for the road, maybe right now, 5 to 6 or sometimes 7 hours because of the road condition. And so Angkor is the great city of the Khmer Empire. So Angkor has been built and developed during the 9th century until 15th century. So which means that for 600 years that the Khmer king builds the temple and enlightens the city from one generation to another generation. So the history of Angkor starts from the reign of the king Jayavarman II, the king builder of the Angkor civilization in 9th century, in early of 9th century. So which means that before 9th century, Cambodia fall into the Civil War. In our country, we got the document from Chinese record. We was the Chenla Kingdom. And the Chenla Kingdom, 8th century, was divided into two parts. One is the Chenla of land, and the other one is Chenla of water. So once the King Jayavarman the seconds came from Java, so Java at that time, many researchers, they suppose that Java was at Indonesia, right now the Java Island, I mean. So when he came from Java Island because of the war, and he was kidnapped, sometimes he was arrested and during the invasion from Java in late of 8th century, and he lived in Java for around 20 years or 30 years, and he's come back. So he tried to unify the kingdom. So in early of 9th century, in the year of 802, he went to Gulen Mountain. So Gulen Mountain is the north of Angkor area. It's the natural mountain, and he built a lot of temple, and he built the city over there called Mahendrapura. So from that time, the Khmer king started to develop the country, and from generation to generation, and in the 12th century, and one king, his name was Suryavarman II. His reign is from 1113 to 1150. So just only 4 years that he built the big temple dedicated to God Vishnu that was called Angkor Wat Temple right now. So this temple, when they finished the construction during the 12th century, this temple was named to Baram Vishnu Lok. So Baram Vishnu Lok is the posthumous name of the king. So which means that the king dedicated this temple to the god of Vishnu. So Cambodia in the past, we respect Hinduism, we respect Buddhism, Mahayana. But after 15th century, when the Angkorian civilization collapsed, we changed the religion from the Hinduism and from Buddhism, Mahayana, into right now into Theravada Buddhism, and we still respect until now. So that's why Angkor is one of the good example that I would like to show you of the change or the conversion from the religion from the Hindus, Buddhism, Mahayana into the Theravada Buddhism. So this is the status of God Vishnu. Yes, the one of the main god of the Hinduism. We have Shiva, Vishnu, and Brahma. So this status, in 12th centuries, they put the status at the top of the century. So, but during the 15th century, the statue has been moved to this place. So which means that the king in 16th century didn't destroy the statue of Vishnu. He just moved the statue from the top and put it in the bottom, and after that he puts the statue of Buddha instead. So this is the conversion from Hindus to a Buddhist shrine, and all the temples in Cambodia, they make the same thing. This temple was built by the king Suryavarman II, the great king of the Khmer history during Angkor period. So this is one of the picture of the bas-relief on the wall, sculpture on the wall of Angkor Wat temple. That the first king that we see on the wall, which means that in 12th century the Khmer king start to build the temple, and they would like to show about his picture and also the daily life of the people. So 12th century is the one of the good model for the king in the late of 12th century and the beginning of 13th century, especially the king Jayavarman VII that built Angkor Wat, that built Bayon temple. So this is one of the example of the bas-reliefs of Angkor Wat bas-relief. So the art at Angkor Wat in 12th century is the top. We can call it was the top of the art history. So which means that engineering, architecture, decoration, and everything was completely finished and evolved from the beginning of 9th century to the 12th century. So which means that only for 300 years that Khmer can develop very fast about the architectures for the religion. And right now, Angkor still be the world's largest religious monument. So for Angkor Wat, the king built just only 40 years, but if we compare with the same period that the people who live in the European country, like in French cathedral, they built for from 200 years to 400 years. So this is how the people how the Khmer people build this kind of temple, just only for a short time. So this is one of the history of Angkor Wat temple, and also this is some of the example of the bas-reliefs at Angkor Wat that the king ordered to the artist to carve the queen and also the people who work in the royal palace, and also this is the scene of the hell. So which means that in the 12th century we start to think about the heaven, we start to think about the hell. So which means that for those who make the merit after the death, they will go to the heaven. But for those who doing bad in during when they live and after the death, they will go to the hell. So this is from Hinduism. We call in Buddhism we call it Tritrang, and in Hinduism we call Tripop. So Tripop is the three world. So we have the earth, we have the heaven, and we have the hell. And so this is one of another example about the donation of the queen to the people who works or who her entourage. And look back, this is the Apsara. So during the Angkor period, especially, they talk about the art, and they make a lot of decoration at Angkor. Even for the staircase, they always carve. Which means that Khmer people never leave the empty place. So for the architecture, for the religion, we always decorate it. Angkor, many people say that Angkor was rediscovered by the French in late of 19th century, of course, because of the discoveries of the Henri Mahot, the naturalist from Paris, and from Paris has got the support from the England. So he went to Indochina. That time we have Vietnam, Laos, and Cambodia, but he traveled just the halfway and he dies along the Mekong River in Laos. So he wrote about Angkor. he wrote a lot of things, and his record has been published after his death in Europe. So after that, the French Emperor Napoleon III interested about Cambodia because they never expect that the small country like Cambodia has a lot of history and cultural heritage. And this is the early drawing pictures by the French during that time. And Angkor Wat, when Angkor Wat became the World Heritage List in 1992, because in 1991 is the year of the transitional period that we start to organize the country because of the civil war in Cambodia, the Khmer Rouge period. So they start to, because of the help from the United Nations. So we organized and we managed the first election in Cambodia. So Angkor at that time was in the danger zone, which means that the battlefield between the Khmer Rouge soldier and the government soldier. So the king, our late King Rodam announced and asked to the UNESCO committee to list the Angkor into the World Heritage List in danger. So after that, the UNESCO committee decided to put Angkor area is Angkor. When we talk about Angkor, it's not only Angkor Wat temple, but a lot of temple in Angkor with the size of 402 kilometers square. Yes, in Angkor area, a lot, about 300 temples over there. And in 1994, NASA started to take the picture from satellite in order to keep as a document for the UNESCO. So as you can see, this is the used reservoirs of water we call Barai, and this is the Western Barai, but right now still has water because of the reconstruction of Barai under the help from the U.S. government in 1960. So at Angkor we still have this, and this is the Eastern Barai, but no water anymore. And right now in the Eastern Barai, a lot of village, the local people live there. And this is Angkor Wat. So Angkor Wat is the small city of we call Angkor Toi, and this is Angkor Thom, the city during the Angkor period. So when the LiDAR released this image, it's very surprised because we found a lot of archaeological evidence, and many people from around the world, especially international organizations, start to make research on Angkor. And this is one of the last research of LiDAR, yes, from about Angkor, that I took this picture from my colleague, Dr. Evan Damien from University of Sydney, from Australia, the director of the project of this LiDAR project. So when they scan the land, they see a lot of archaeological evidence. But because of Angkor was covered by the forest, we cannot see very clear. But with LiDAR, we know that Angkor was the city that has a lot of people live there. And according to the research result from LiDAR, at least they estimate that from 300,000 people to 400,000 people live in this complex. So that's why we call that Angkor Toi. But when these people start to live from 12th century, 13th century, or 15th century. So for this question, we still discovers. We could not determine that, okay, those people live in 12th century or these people, but we need a lot of research excavation, archaeological excavation. So this is imagination and 3D reconstruction of the from the LiDAR. That this data we got is from Sydney, University of Sydney. They cooperate with the BBC in England, and they reproduce and they just release the new documentaries about Angkor Wat. So which means that Angkor Wat, when Angkor Wat finished the building, when the king finished the building, which means that the people live there already. Because we have the people who keep the temple, work for the temple, and we have also the people who construct the temple. So which means that for Cambodian people or Cambodian beliefs, since long times ago, from 1st century until 12th century, the people consider the temple as the sacred place. A lot of belief inside the sacred place include local belief, Hinduism, and the Buddhism. And until even now, we still respect these three beliefs together. So at Angkor, we have also this kind of bas-relief, the churning the ocean mill. It's the longest bas-relief in the world, depicting about the churning the ocean mill. And beside that, we have also some scent from the Mahabharata and from the Ramayana. So, which means that during 12th century, the Indian epic, Indian story, mythology from Mahabharata and Ramayana was very famous for Cambodian people. And that's why the king ordered to the artists to carve this. And this is from the Indian civilization, Indian culture. But when Khmer realized that, we made it with Khmerization, which means that we convert from the Indian style into Khmer style. Yes. So this is the gallery, eastern gallery behind the Angkor Wat temple that you can compare with 250 meter long and 250 or 250 meter high. So which means it's the longest and the biggest bas-relief of the churning the ocean mill. So Angkor Wat and all the temple in Cambodia considered as the Mount Meru, the heaven on earth. That the king have to realize that, because the king respect to the Hinduism, the king respect to the Buddhism, Mahayana, so he has to build the temple dedicated to the god. And one more thing, he has to build the temple dedicated to the ancestor, which means that they link their ancestor into the god. So after the death of the ancestor, their parents will go to serve the god in the future. So, and now we didn't have possibility to build this kind of big temple like before, but it's very Angkor Wat is like one of example of the Mount Meru. So you can see inside the Mount Meru we have the central, we have Phnom Kaila in Khmer, or we call the Mount Meru and the Kailasa in Sanskrit. So this is the resident of God. So we have Vishnu, we have Shiva, and we have Rama. Because of this temple dedicated to Vishnu, that's why they put the statue of the Vishnu at the top of the temple. And we have a scouring by the four peaks of the mountain, and with the gallery, seven that represent of the seven chain of the mountain, and the space between the gallery and the gallery is represent of the seven ocean. This is in the cosmology concept. But after the collapse of Angkor, of course, Angkor can grow because of agriculture. Khmer built a lot of irrigation system. So because of agriculture, it can support to the soldier. And when the soldier was strong, we can go far away to invade the other country, of course, because that time is the war. We cannot negotiate to take the land from the other. If you were strong, you will take the land. And because of this, after the Angkor collapse, civilization, so Cambodian people had the internal conflict. That's why our territory reduced, and because of the power of the neighboring country like the kingdom of Siam and the kingdom of Laos and the kingdom of Dai Viet or Vietnam right now, they were very strong. So when we have the internal conflict inside the country, it's easy for them to grab our land back. So it's normal. So when after the king, Bunyayat moved the capital from Angkor in 15th century in the year of 1431 AD. So he moved the capital from Angkor to Phnom Penh right now, but Phnom Penh at that time was named as the Chatamuk because of the Four-Faced River. So 15th century, the king, the son of the king Bunyayat, who moved the capital from Angkor, he went to Angkor Wat again. So he started to convert. He started to transform all the Hindu shrine, all the Mahayana Buddhist shrine into the Theravada Buddhist shrine. So which means that he didn't destroy, he just removed the main god of the temple and put behind or put in front of the temple and replaced by the statue of Lord Buddha. And that's all. And this is the temple, this is one of the statues. We have four at the top of the Angkor Wat temple. So this statue was built in 16th century. So which means that when we build, and the king also ordered to the scripture to write the inscription, Angkor Wat becomes the tomb. Angkor Wat becomes the stupa of the royal family. So which means that after the relation of the royal family or the relation of the king died, they always put the relic on Angkor Wat, at Angkor Wat. And right now Cambodian people do it a lot. We always give, or we always keep the relic of the dead inside the pagoda, and especially with the monk. So this is one of the reasons that Angkor Wat becomes the tomb, or Angkor Wat becomes the stupa of the local people. And another, this is another pictures about Angkor Wat, because in the top of the Angkor Wat temple we have 4 directions, and each direction you have one statue of Buddha. So 4 statues of Buddha is 4 directions. So this is the map or the plan of Angkor Wat in early of 18th century. So this is drawing by Japanese pilgrim. They went there and they respect. But that time, this is look like the Japanese style, not the Khmer style, because at that time they was confused as the Chetapon Pagoda in India. So that's why they draw this. But when the researcher found this in early of 20th century, we know that this is not the pagoda in India, but this is Angkor Wat temple. So which means that Angkor Wat temple in the, we call post-Angkor period, from 15th century to 18th century, Angkor Wat temple or Angkor area was the center of the religion. Not just only Cambodian people who went there, but a lot of people from Japan, from Myanmar, from Java, from Thailand, from Vietnam, and from Malaysia went there, and they always write something on the wall as the testimony to prove that they went there and they pay homage to the God, and they pay homage to the Buddha, sorry. And this is one of another examples about the stupa of the Jainun. Jainun or the Jainanda in Sanskrit word was the minister of the king in 18th century. So he built this stupa dedicated to his wife and his 2 sons who died at the same time, but we don't know why they died and what is the cause of this death. But Jainun was very famous because he also writes the on the wall of Angkor Wat to admire the god, to admire the architect, to admire the king who restored these temples again and after the collapse of Angkor Wat. And he dedicated all the merit that he did to the family, especially to his wife and his son. So, and until now, every year, Cambodian people always has the religious ceremony. They always go to this stupa. They make this religious ceremony to pray homage for the Jainun or for the minister. And another testimony is about the changing of Angkor Wat from the Hindus to Buddhist shrine is the wall, the pillar, and on the pillar you will see the inscription. This inscription written in 16th century, 17th century, and 18th century that talk about dedication, talk about the king who went there and he started to restore the temple, and after that the king ordered to the minister to come here and order to other people, the local people who live in the city, to pay homage to the temple. So which means that Angkor was very famous from during the post-Angkor period, especially in 16th century. And this is one of examples of the inscription written on the wall on the pillar of the temple. So why Khmer people still respect this temple? Because this temple built 400 years ago, from 12th century, and the people in 16th century went there and respect the temple. So because Khmer never separate what is the Hinduism, what is the Buddhism, and what is the local belief. When we got Indian culture, when we got Chinese culture, we always combine with the local belief. So we, in 6th century, 7th centuries, we start to make it in with Khmerization, which means that we convert everything into Khmer. So because of this, Khmer can build the strong society, a strong culture, civilization from 9th century to 15th century for 600 years. And this is one of example, and this status of Buddha, as you can see, still here, and this status of Buddha was built in 16th century. And we put a lot of statues of Buddha, of course. But right now, those statues, some statues was kept in the conservation center of Angkor because of that time it was the war, and we are afraid that somebody will steal the statues and sell into the art market or something like that. So every year and every time when the Khmer people go there, including me, we always pray. It's not the tourist site. For Cambodian people, of course, and also for the Asian people, this temple was not a tourist site. And this is one of examples of, this is my photo that I just took before I come here. So this is the Vishnu, God of Angkor Wat. So why Khmer people still respect these statues? Because in the past it was Vishnu, but right now it's still Vishnu. And very strong belief, because we believe that the local disaster, the spiritual power still inside Angkor Wat, and especially the king still keep the temple. And this is the temple of Angkor Wat that you can see. This is the top one. So Angkor Wat has 3 levels. So this is the first, and this is the second, and this is the top. So Angkor Wat has the long causeway, which means that when you go from here to here, to that place to the top, which means that you across the bridge, which means you across you go to the heaven. I mean, so when you go to the heaven, your heart, everything have to be purified. So for the bad people, they always respect. For the good people, they always go there to get the merit. So, which means that we go to Angkor Wat temple to pray, to pay homage, to ask for the happiness, for the luckiest, and for the prosperity. And this is one of example of the poet of Jainon, the minister of the 18th century, that just behind the stupa, that he wrote about the admire of the temple, and also the dedicate all the merit of the king to the nation and to his wife. So it's a long inscription. It's 16th century, 18th century. Sorry. So this is one of the picture of the renovation or the reconstruction of the Angkor Wat temple, because this bas-relief is not carving in 12th century, but this bas-relief was carving in 16th century. So which means that in 12th century they keep, one is the northeast side of Angkor Wat, the wall of the northeast side of Angkor Wat empty. And we don't know why the king or the Khmer ancestor during 12th century keep that place. But we had to believe that the northeast is the corner of the death. The northeast is the direction of the god Shiva. So in order to pay respect to the god, they left this. So, but we could not explain very clear about why the Khmer people in 12th century keep that place empty. So the place that they keep empty is here. All of this have the carving. This is, we have the Mahabharata, and this is, we have Ramayana, and this is, we have the historical procession of the king, and this is, we have the churning the ocean of milk. But these two parts, this corner, 12th century was empty and was filled or was carved by the king, the artist in 16th century. So this is when we look through the art, especially the decoration, it's not the same, because in the past 12th century, more beautiful, more than the artists in 16th century, of course, because 16th century Cambodia was into the internal conflict. Khmer king always fight to each other. So even the king, he would like to complete his merit, in who he would like to renovate the temple, dedicate to the Buddha, dedicate to the Theravada Buddhism. But for the artist, we still have the limit for the masterpiece. So it's not good masterpiece like the bas-relief in 12th century. Sorry. So this is one of the examples about the soldier that original is a copy from the 12th century. But for this one, if you look to the face, if you look to the decoration, if you look to what they show you in the characteristic of the soldier, it's not good for the art, I mean. But because Khmer has a belief, so we have to complete this merit to dedicate to the god. So this is one. This is the bas-relief, as northeast bas-relief that the Khmer kings in 16th century ordered to the artist to make it. For the important thing, we had also some influence from Chinese in 16th century, especially the Chinese art. For example, this image this is, if you look, this image was not in Khmer art, but with the Chinese art. And in order to show to the audience, show to the local people, this image was very important. They put the color on the bas-relief. Red color and sometimes covered by the gold leaf. So in the past, but right now the gold leaf disappear, but we still have a lot of red color on the wall of the Angkor Wat temple. This is Vishnu, the main god of Angkor Wat, that they moved in 15th century and 16th century from the top to the bottom. But until now, the local people still respect. So we never abandon Angkor Wat. Even the king changed the capital from Angkor to the Phnom Penh city in 15th century, but we still have the local people there. But who keep this and who restore this kind of culture? I will show you. Because we have a lot of these statues of Buddha along the gallery. All the gallery of Angkor Wat were filled by the statues of Buddha. This is the picture or the painting of the Louis de la Peau. He is a French researcher or French explorer in the late of 19th century. And he came to Cambodia and he draw about Angkor Wat temple. Imagination in the past when Angkor was just built. This is one of the pictures that I would like to show you during the French colonial period. Angkor Wat was the sacred place for the Cambodian people, but Angkor Wat was the tourist place for the French people and for the European people. So they always make the poster, exhibition and promotion for the tourists to get the tourists to come to Angkor Wat. So this is in the eye of the Western people during the 19th century and 20th century. And this is a picture of the early, late of 19th century. So, which means that when we talk about Angkor, all of this we call Angkor Park. It's very big and was listed into the World Heritage List in 1992. Yes, and after that, the number of the tourists increased from 200,000 people in 1993, and right now 4.5 million people. Yeah, so just only 20 years, the number of the tourists increased, and we expect that this number will increase again because right now Cambodia has peace and we develop the country, and because of the tourists, a lot of hotel in Siem Reap, yes, they construct the new project. But we also concerns about this that will destroy the archaeological site. Yes, of course. This is the image of the coin. 19th century, before the French come to control Cambodia. So, which means that Angkor is the symbol of the nation. We never forget Angkor. From 15th, 16th, 17th, 18th, and 19th century, the king ordered to the artist and make it as a coin. And right now, Angkor still on the national flag of Cambodia too. So during the coronation, 1920, the king went there, and the king, they have a lot of religious religious ceremony and coronation ceremony at Angkor. So the king have to go to Angkor and pray for the happiness for the country. This one of the local people in 1920 that they still live near Angkor Wat, and some of them around Angkor Wat. And also we have the residence for the monk. That's why this we call the pagoda. the city of the pagoda. This picture took in the early of 20th century, in the year of 1900 or 1910. So this is Angkor Wat. So which means that the people, especially the monks, still keep that place and also had a lot of religious ceremony. And this picture took in 1960 that the local people always go for this is during the New Year festival, that after praying they also happiness, they dance with the classical music and and this is Angkor and the local people. So right now Angkor we have two pagoda here along the Angkor, the northern pagoda and the south pagoda. But before the French come, all the pagoda around Angkor, a lot of pagoda. So not just only in Angkor Wat, but in Angkor Thom, we have a lot of evidence about the status of Buddha that reconstructed during the 16th century, 17th century, and 18th century. This is the first picture of the Angkor Wat in around 1880. That when the French comes, they took this photo. So you can see that this the Angkor Wat was in the bad condition. It's covered by the jungle. So nobody cared. They cared just only the tower. But because Angkor Wat was very big, it's nearly a mile. For the dimension of the temple. So this is the place that where the monk live, and to protect the religious. This is, you can see, early or 20th century. This is the koti, we call kot in Khmer. That's the house for the monk. So live near Angkor Wat. And who protect this? Not the local people. But the monk protects the temple, and the local people support the monk. So this is how we can keep this culture, and how we can keep this temple. And sometimes we have also, when the king go to Angkor Wat temple, they always have the dancer and the musician. Because in the past, this dancer and the musicians always live inside the temple. Yes, because it's the place of God. You have to play the music, you have to dance, dedicate to the God every time. And this is one of the examples about the status of Buddha that they took from the Angkor Wat temple. So in the middle you can see this is the statue of the Ganesha, the god of the knowledge, but this is the Hindu's god. But why Khmer people still put the Hindu's god and mix with the Buddha of the Theravada Buddhism? We never separate this. This is the governor of Siem Reap in late of 12th century, late of 19th century, the beginning of 20th century, and this is where the monks always go. For the Cambodian monk, they always have the religious ceremony at Angkor Wat. Every month we have the holy day, and during the holy day, the top, the level or the top of Angkor Wat was closed. We didn't allow the tourists to get there. It's only the monk who can go there. Yes, to make the ceremony. And this is another temple at Bayon Temple, the Mahayana temple in 12th century. But this is in this photo take in this period, 21st century. So which means that from 12th century until now, we still respect. And this is some picture of the Lida, and this is Angkor Thom, the great city. We have 3 kilometers for each corner. Yeah, this is the Bayuan temple when completes the building. This is Prakhan temple, and I would like to show you some of the picture of the temple of the Mahayana Buddhism, but convert into the Theravada Buddhism from the post-Angkorian period until now. So this is Prakhan temple that the King Jayavarman VII built for his father in 1191 AD. And so inside the temple, a lot of saints are the Buddhist saints here. But after the reign of the Jayavarman VII, we have the conflict of religion. They destroy all the image of the Buddha here, or image of the Avalokitesvara. So which means that just a short reign of the king, only 20 years, but some of the temple, the Buddhist Mahayana temple, was destroyed. But not destroy all the temple, only the statues of the Buddha. And sometimes they they convert into the linga of Shiva. This is the statues or the stupa of Prakhan temple inside the central tower. So this is the status of Apsara, of course. But right now, the local people believe that this is the picture or the image of the Queen Indradevi, the queen or the wife of the King Jayavarman VII in 12th century. This is another queen called Jayadevi, because the king has two wives. Yeah, yes. So this is some of the image of Taprum temple here in from 12th century, 13th century, and this temple right now is under the reconstruction of the Indian group that they make it. So because of the abundance of the temple, many temples in Angkor Wat was covered by the forest. That is the big problem for the restoration work right now. So right now, the technical group had to decide, will we keep this tree or will we have to cut this tree? And this is one of the examples that the French scholar or the French architecture during the French colonial period, they would like to keep this temple for the public. They clean all the temple, but they keep this because they would like to show that Angkor, after the abandon, no one take care, no one cleans. The Angkor was covered by the jungle. And as you can see, this is very famous of Angkor Wat temple or Bayon Taprum temple. And this is also in the film of the Angelina Jolie, Tomb Raider, that because of this film, a lot of people around the world go to Angkor Wat temple. So this is one of the promotion of the Khmer cultural heritage. Because invasion by the jungle, but if we keep this, it's the nature. But if we clean this, it's also to respect the religion. This is what the technical have to do. We have to discuss, negotiate amongst the technical team. So it's very clear that inside the temple in Cambodia, both Hindu shrine and the Buddhist Mahayana shrine, in order to convert into the Theravada Buddhism, they just put the status of Buddha inside, that's all. So everything will combine together. Hindus believe, Mahayana Buddhism belief, local belief, and the Theravada Buddhism belief. So this is some of the work of the restoration work of the Buddhist shrine inside Angkor area. So this is the problem that they have to decide how to cut the tree. They cannot keep this because when the tree collapses, the wall of the temple will fall down too. So this is the work of the restoration before and after the restoration here. So this is how the temple invaded by the jungle during post-Angkor period and until now. They still keep this and they still discuss about this problem. But I think that they could not keep this. They will cut this tree out here. And this is external wall or the room. This is after restoration. So this is one of the testimonies about the destruction or the Silver Age reaction after the death of the king Jayavarman VII, because he was the Buddhism Mahayana's king. But after the death of his death, we had the Silver Age reaction. Many of the Buddha statues were destroyed. We don't know why, because maybe someone had him, or the reaction from the king that has respect the Hinduism, but he didn't destroy the temple, just the Buddha's image. And right now, a lot of tourists come, and Angkor Wat still, in Khmer belief, the religious place or the sacred place, not the tourist place. So this is what I would like to share with you about Angkor from Hindus to Buddhist shrine, because just only 1 hour I cannot talk for more detail, but I would like to give some examples about that. Thank you so much for your attention.
Are you willing to answer some questions?
Yes, if
anyone would have any questions for Dr. Chan?
yes.
I'm interested in the location of Angkor Wat.
Yeah.
What was the strategic advantage in the 9th century, politically, physically, whatever, and then why in the 12th or 13th did it move to Phnom Penh?
Yeah, concerning about this, because after the collapse of Angkor in 15th century, we have a lot of attack from the Siam. Yes, the Siam dynasty, they grow up very fast. So they move from the north, from the Sukhothai to Ayutthaya. So Ayutthaya is very close to Angkor, just 300 kilometers, yes, from Angkor. So if they fight with Angkor, because the king of Angkor was weak, we didn't have possibility to fight back. So the king had to move out. And one of the reasons of this collapse, because of the climate change too, because of the new research result from international team, from 16th century, from 13th century to 14th century, we had the drought in Southeast Asia, not in Cambodia. So we make analysis about the tree, on the tree. So they cut the tree and they count. So because of this, all irrigation system in Angkor was broken. So because of Angkor can be developed as because of the agriculture, we need the water. So when you don't have the water, you have nothing to support the soil. So the soil, everything will collapse automatically. So this is one of the reasons that the king had to move the city from the drought place, from the empty place to the water place. Yes.
Yeah, please, yeah.
Yeah. So you see, in India, you have this kind of this reverse trend where the Buddha becomes sort of appropriated into Hindu culture and looked at as, you know, one of the 10 avatars of Vishnu. And around this, and you see this kind of prominently happening in the 12th century with Jayadeva's Gita Govinda and Kshementra and so on. You see develop out of that a very kind of nuanced theology to try to explain how Buddha fits within this kind of, you know, notion of the avatara, right? And I'm wondering if there was any kind of similar theological move if you're going to say we're not going to destroy the Vishnu icon, we're going to downgrade it a little bit, but move it over to the side. But was there any do we have any record of like a theological process of trying to reconcile the role of Vishnu as being somehow not as important but still present in the context of first, as you were saying, first the Mahayana Buddhist tradition and then the Theravada Buddhist tradition?
Yeah. Concerning about this, because we had inscription in 16th century and 17th century who talk about this move, the statue from the top and they put in the bottom. And the king ordered to the artist and to cow, and we have the record from the inscription in Angkor. So for the point of view of the Khmer people, especially in the past, because post-Angkor period was a dark period. Khmer cannot build the big temple like before. So, which means that no need to destroy the big one. We just keep it and restore it, and we just place the statues of Buddha instead of the statues of Vishnu or the statue of Shiva. So that's all. And sometimes we can keep all those statues together. So this is ideologies and the concept of the Khmer and the tolerance of the Buddhism Theravadas is like that. But this theory and this idea came from the King Jayavarman VII, because in the late of 12th century, the beginning of 13th century, Jayavarman VII start to build the country with the Buddhism Mahayana concept. And he also sent his son to Sri Lanka to learn about the Theravada Buddhism. So which means that after his death, his sons came back from Sri Lanka and he started to spread in the 13th century the Theravada Buddhism. So which means that in order to change the country from the Hinduism to Theravada Buddhism need time, at least 200 years. So why 200 years? Because Angkor collapsed, the civilization, the culture was weak. We had the attack from the other. So maybe a lot of people during the Angkor period, a lot of people died by the construction of the temple too. So no one knows. Even we don't have any records about the death of the local people, about the laborer who worked there. And for example, this temple, at least 200 temple or 200,000 people worked for 4 years to build this temple. So this is because of the collapse of the power of the king. Yeah. So that's why Khmer cannot destroy, but we keep that. We just change. We just put the statue of Buddha. That's all. And when we build the pagoda, we build with the small one by the wooden construction. Yes, that's it.
Yes, please.
So what I have found to be frustrating about coming to understand Cambodian art and architecture is the lack of good resources, and it's just a struggle to try to piece together what the original purposing was, what it looked like, and I think that sort of certainly has to do with your question. Mine is about the diagram that you showed of the plan of the temple and the outskirt of the temple and the reconstruction of the possible housing and sub-temples that may have been there and this vast population that we believe was living there. Can you tell us if that was actually reconstructed, that we saw, the image that you showed us, based on new archaeological digs that have been done and specific evidence that has been found to demonstrate that that was there? Because it's a real curiosity of mine that I haven't been able to get more information about.
Okay. Concerning about this, I would like to, at the moment I forget to answer about the symbol of Vishnu after the post-Angkor period. Because Khmer people, and until now, we still respect all the gods. Vishnu, Shiva, Ganesha, Buddha, and even the Avalokiteshvara in the Buddhism Mahayana. So even in Phnom Penh right now, we always put the status of those gods in the country. Concerning about how to reconstruct, we had the evidence about the reconstruction of the temple during the post-Angkor period, and especially for 16th century and 17th century, that the Khmer people during that time moved the column from the bottom and to reconstruct as the wall, or to put as the door frame on the top of the temple. And based on archaeological, that we still, as I told you at the moment, we still make more research on that, because we cannot determine that those places was the evidence from the 12th century and that place were the evidence from the 16th century or 17th century. But we are sure that from 12th century until 18th century, the people, especially the local people, are still there. And the Khmer king in 16th century and the 17th century, they convert the temple over there as the castle. And we found a lot of evidence, archaeological evidence, that is the fortress, very protected. And it's like the new city built on the old city site. Yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anyone else? Any other questions? In that case, I will take this opportunity first of all to remind you of a further lecture is going to be coming Thursday here by Dr. Liv Nielsen-Stutz from Emory University about thanatology, another approach to the archaeology of burial. And on that note, before I invite you all for a drink at the reception out here, and to, if you want to sort of continue some discussions with Dr. Saratana, I would like you to ask me to join me and thank once more for this talk.
Thank you so much.